All right, dudes. Okay. It is day 15. We are officially at the halfway point in Nano. We have more than half the words required. Uh, at the midpoint in days of all the Nano. Uh, and today we actually wrote more words than we have any other day. Spirits are unseasonably high. Um, Normally I'm sick of everything by the time I get to the middle of Nano. But I'm really feeling this one, man. I really like my characters, even though the story's gonna need a lot of work. I think the characters are really solid, and I can really work with this. I've got a lot of ideas, and I got some good characters who I like. I kind of was realizing, since these are all characters from previous failed nanos, or nanos that succeeded in writing enough words, but not in writing words that I could then do anything with after the uh, the season had finished. I do feel like I know my characters a lot better than usual, which is exciting. So I don't know, like stuff that I hadn't written down and stuff, but like it just felt right for the character keep occurring, and that's fine. We like this. I have realized that April is obviously not able to fulfill her role as the you know everyman character anymore now that she's completely insane. This happened during the previous story I never finished writing. So in that one, she was meant to be the everyman. She definitely can't be anymore. That ship sailed. Anyway, we do have some literature today to get us in the mood for my best day in Nano so far. I'm hoping this one's not too long. This is Sherlock Holmes today. Sherlock Holmes and the mystery of the too many eggs. What the fuck is the deal with all this eggs? Asked Serlok, the number one baker on Bakery Street, and the number one detective of punching people until they tell you secrets. As he gazed out into the street, too many eggs congregated before his very eyes. I don't know, buddy. Serlok's stalwart companion, Dr. Wolfson, was also there. A big Labrador who spoke passable English and was allowed to be a doctor for some reason. Seems suspicious. Seems like a mystery, Serlok added, with a sly wink to camera. We'd better get on it then, Wolfson wagged excitedly, struggling to balance his little hat on top of his dumb dog doctor head. When he wasn't baking, Serlok's favourite activity in all the world, or beating a man unconscious with an item of cutlery, his second favourite, Serlok liked to solve important crime mysteries. The eggs weren't doing anything obviously criminal, but Serlok didn't approve of or respect them, which was close enough. He pulled his magnifying glass out of his jacket pocket and used it to get a closer look at one of the passing eggs. What he saw may shock you. There's a note on this egg, Serlok announced excitedly. Wolfson wagged harder. What's it say? Have fun looking at all these eggs, you dang old nerdo. Someone you know who is frequently rude to you. Serlok read the note out angrily. It's signed someone you know who is frequently rude to you. That's a really annoying note, Wolfson pointed out. Serlok agreed so hard he crushed the egg in his bare hand, covering himself in egg gunk in the process. If this is my stupid brother, I'm going to actually strangle him, he told. Serlok's brother, Microsoft, was a very important businessman who also kind of liked mysteries, but it was mostly just in computers. Like Serlok, he was also really smart to the point of being frequently insufferable. I knew you were coming, Microsoft told Serlok, who was in the process of barging angrily through his office door, adding, I am very smart. He beamed. Listen here, Microsoft, my garbage brother. What's the deal with all these eggs? Serlok pressed him, wagging an angry finger in his direction. Microsoft was not impressed. I am brokering important deals at every moment, he declared. Do not bother me with these eggs. The eggs are all over the dang road, Serlok protested. Nobody can park anywhere. Microsoft slammed his fist down on his desk and bellowed, I don't care about egg, I like computer. Serlok opened his mouth to say something really sassy, but at the exact moment his phone rang. It was Dr. Wolfson. He would only call if it was very important. I have to take this actually, Serlok told Microsoft. Don't go anywhere. I have more egg questions. He backed out of the room to take his important phone call. Microsoft made a fart sound with his mouth. Explain yourself to me, Serlok told the phone. Any news on the egg front? Bad news, I'm afraid, Wolfson told back to him. Everyone's blaming us for the eggs, which are a major inconvenience right now. If we don't shift them soon, we're going to get in trouble. Tell them I have no affiliation with these bad eggs, Serlok demanded. I've told them, but they won't listen to me. They're outside your store and everyone thinks they're dog eggs, Phone revealed. How's the investigation going? Any leads? I've tracked down my idiot brother, but he's not talking. Serlok glanced bitterly back towards his brother's office, knowing that Microsoft was probably still making rude sounds and gestures in his direction. He gritted his teeth and gripped the phone a little tighter. Put the screws to him, Serlok, Wolfson advised. I'll do what damage control I can, but we don't have time to mess around here. Serlok hung up the phone without another word, then barged back into Microsoft's office with a powerful, and another thing! But the office was empty. I think that's my favourite of the Serlok Holmeses. There's, as you know, a lot of Serlok Holmeses. That is quite an underground one. You might not have previously heard of it. That one was written by me. I wrote that just as a goof. I can't remember. I don't think I wrote it for anything. I was just bored. And I snuck it into the description of one of my videos. But good luck finding which one. I have too many. You'll never do it. That's why I didn't think it'd be that long, because it was YouTube description sized. But it still was pretty obviously too long. Anyway, this is also gonna be a long one, so let's get ready here. Some of this we're not 100% on. When we get to the next scene, then that's when, you know, we're more happy with what we've done here. We'd wrote ourselves into having to do a stupid Zack scene when he's the only one not involved with what's happening. We did that because we couldn't think of anything to. We felt like I felt like I should swap back to Zack because everyone else, we were like cycling through everyone, but like he wasn't doing anything. Why do we need? I guess it's important to explain why he's no longer standing around the lifts. But we had kind of already done that. Anyway, under the stairs was nothing. A completely open, inhabitable space. He'd stand there, and when the monster ran down chasing everyone, he'd slip past it. To be honest, it wasn't exactly rocket science. There were already a couple of people waiting there, presumably for similar reasons. He was assuming it wouldn't turn around. He was assuming it wouldn't turn around in the chaos. That's referring to the monster. That should be a little bit more clear. Which seemed a fair bet, but left the door open for catastrophic failure. As the fleeing suits neared the stairs, loudly and rapidly, Zack pondered the many ways he could be about to have his face torn off. It didn't happen. A worryingly small, notably ragged band of survivors dashed by, the beast a streak of gold behind them. It absolutely did. Excuse me. It absolutely did look more like a cat than a dog. He tried not to look at or think about what it was actually doing to the people. He was very surprised when he ran upstairs and there was another one right there. Zack had the good sense to drop when he saw it, hiding on the reverse slope of the stairs. It hadn't been looking directly his way, but it'd surely been within its peripheral vision. What if it'd seen him? Giving it a good few seconds, he chanced another peek, needing to know if he'd already been rumbled before it came bounding over. It was now facing fully the other way. It looked like a wild animal, a big cat. It roared and moved like one too. Powerful muscle groups visible beneath its skin as it strolled idly, searching for survivors. On closer inspection, though, the thing was made of the same stuff as the central pillar. The same tiny, intricate items of clockwork. Zack realized he was watching an impossibly complex facsimile of life. It ticked slowly as it examined the area, and the sound grew drastically more rapid when it found some. He looked away then, waiting until the yells of pain had died out to make another decision. He decided not to risk a third peek. There were two of them, that he knew of. There was no upper limit on how many of the creatures might be prowling around the area. He was definitely caught between two of them, and going either forwards or back was doom. The stairwell he was lying down on was extremely uncomfortable and very exposed. He was contemplating the many possible problems in his life at that moment, when one of the suits who'd been huddled under the stairs helpfully decided to add to them by stepping over him, walking out onto the floor, and proudly pronouncing, "Oh shit!" Zack leapt up and tried to force his way back down the stairs, but the other suits had packed in shoulder to shoulder behind him. He was trapped, and now standing. He spun around in time to see that the man who'd passed him was absolutely fine, and the monster had wandered off. It wasn't what he'd braced himself for. Somewhere very nearby, on the floor above, some idiot had started yelling. He wondered if it had anything to do with April. So, a bit pointless that bit, but it does. It is the first time we've described the monster, really, rather than it just being a streak of gold. Looks a bit like a big cat. So maybe if we lean more into that for this in the editing process, then it'd be kind of worth having this scene, maybe. But we spent a lot of time writing this scene and the next one. The impact of the beast into the square-headed man flung him clean across the room, slamming him into the wall with bone-breaking force. He flailed back in response, stunned and wounded, but there was no hope. He clawed against the thing with his fingernails, but what they impacted against was metal. Pistons and gears scratched back at him as he fought for purchase, and as the monster lined up its next attack, threw out a quick scratch with both its forearms, and the man crumpled bloodily. It gave a roar of victory, stopping when it realized it still wasn't alone. Rob had attempted to hide against the side of the desk, leaving a couple of his limbs fully exposed to view. April hadn't even bothered. She held the hammer out in front of her like it might repel the thing and backed away slowly towards the exit. The man on the ground wriggled, briefly, trying to crawl away. The creature ignored the arrival of the new pair for as long as it took to adjust its position and bring its jaws down on his head. April looked away, trying to ignore the thunderous crack that resulted and the sudden cessation of movement thereafter. Rob threw his hole punch at her and ran away. April heard him go past and, after the worrying few moments it took her to process this information, followed after. Two afters, never mind. It watched the hole punch spin gently towards it, and made no attempt to move as the item of stationery, there's got to be a better word for it, bounced harmlessly off its shoulder. It let them get a decent head start. It liked the chase. April followed Rob as he dashed down the hallway, quickly realizing that she couldn't keep up. It was pointless anyway. The walkways were completely empty. No cover, nothing to use as a weapon. It had already been well established that neither of them were going to outrun the things. April looked back, and it hadn't yet left the office. She ran a few more feet, slow, exhausted and stumbling, then glanced again to find it had already half caught up to her. She tried to call for Rob, but couldn't find the breath. It'd been a long day already. The next office was not open. April barreled into the door desperately, hoping it wasn't locked and might give way rather than explode in a shower of jagged shrapnel. She was in this instance uncharacteristically lucky. A moment later, the entire wall shattered regardless as the thing came through in one, effortless bound behind her. April used the last of her energy to vault an adjacent desk, putting an obstruction between her and it. She knew intimately that she was cornered. The thing growled a low, cruel growl and made its plodding way towards her, walking rather than run, as no urgency was necessary. She wasn't going anywhere. April stared it down as it closed in. Its eyes were an alternating series of lenses of varying colours and depths. Its teeth were an amalgam of differently shaped blades, saws, and drills. Any one of them was a vicious weapon, and when it bared its fangs, it became explicitly clear how effortlessly it could kill a man. It swung It swung a casual, testing jab. April's counter met its paw in midair. The impact almost knocked the weapon from her hand, but it created a spray of small cogs and gears as the thing recoiled. Parts suddenly bent out of shape and non-functional. It gave an offended snarl, and April could see she'd taken off most of her finger. I don't know. I kept rewriting this and it's still shit. What? You weren't expecting a scrap? April yells desperately, voice ruined. Adrenaline had taken over her, and she'd gone from being barely able to stand to taunting the thing. A tiny, doubting speck at the back of her brain wondered how long it might last. The teeth came next. It sprang forwards, gripping onto the top of the desk with the front half of its limbs, and launched into a horrifying bite, stretching far further forwards than had seemed possible. April backed up, but the next desk was too close behind for her to achieve a comfortable distance, and the muzzle of the creature very nearly made contact. It shuffled for a moment, walking the desk forward a few inches before launching another attack. She dodged to the side and swung. More by luck than judgment, she caught the thing in the mouth. Sorry about that. Sorry. A horrible metal on metal screech rang out from the impact, lingering afterwards as the thing's teeth began to saw through the head of the hammer. April tried to pull it back, but it didn't budge an inch. The weapon was firmly under the control of her assailant. She was forced to let go, continuing to move backwards around the side of the desk she'd been forced up against. The monster hopped down. The monster hopped gracefully down from the desk and idly paced along with her. Taking a moment to adjust the position of the tool in its mouth so it could more easily destroy the thing, the screaming, cutting sound like a dentist drill intensified until the thing was satisfied with the damage it had done, spitting out the weapon in several distinct pieces. April had liked that hammer. Hey, over here! The thing turned for a moment to make note of the newcomer. Rob was standing in the doorway, waving, unarmed and just as doomed as his comrade. The Azalot shortly turned its. Sorry, folks, I keep burping. I'm trying not to do it into the microphone. The Azalot shortly turned its attention back to the one it had already caught. April had spent the half second the thing was distracted, possibly the last half second of her existence, scrambling for another weapon. She'd come up with an empty coffee mug and was slightly embarrassed about the whole affair. She realised Ed would have known what to do. Ed wouldn't have been intimidated by the thing, because Ed was never scared. Instead of freaking out and flailing around like a man drowning, he'd have studied its movements and looked for an opening. He'd have noted the small delay between each of his actions, like it was calculating, and noted that as the time to strike. He'd have seen the slight bow of its head and the relaxing of the muscles in its forelegs that heralded a pounce, and he'd have known that was when you dodge. April had run herself into a corner, so he'd have had to dodge forwards. That sounded crazy, but it was surely possible as long as you took the initiative and moved early. Once you were past the jaws, it had already failed, and at this distance, while it was still moving forwards, it'd have to react extremely quickly to catch such a move. It would be tested, at least. April thought she was still running through the possibility space in her mind as she started to move. She gave an unconscious cry of something between rage, panic, and exertion, lunging straight towards the beast. It had already begun its attack, and though it saw her begin to lurch forwards, it was too slow to react. She slammed into the shoulder hard, managing to glance past it with some fresh bruises. She was definitely still in one piece, though, as the beast concluded its failed attack, pressed up against the back wall and facing the wrong way. Ed's voice was an echo of an echo, still powerful and omnipresent, but barely louder than a whisper. You'll get nothing for nothing, he told her. We'll square it, Blair. Another desperate cry rang out. This one April was fairly sure she wasn't making. As the beast turned itself clumsily around in the enclosed space of the office, slamming a desk to wood chips as it did, Rob sprang his attack. He'd initiated his charge with absolutely no idea what he was intending, but as the distance closed, a PC tower on one of the desks began to stand out to him as looking particularly hefty. He slammed the tower over the back of the Azalot, and while it broke apart immediately, the monster slammed into the ground under the weight of it, thrashing and clicking. It rolled, slicing deep gouges out of the carpet and surrounding furniture. April and Rob exchanged one brief moment of combined surprise and exhalation, a glance that lasted as long as an eye blink. Then, without a word, they were both moving, heading for the door. They left the office and rounded the corner, running immediately and directly into Zach, who'd been dashing over to help. And that's where we are today. That's all. So we're gonna leave you on a cliffhanger here. Planning to wrap up the Azalot situation quite quickly. Um, yeah, they've got a. So they do have kind of a like a horrific weakness that just means you win immediately if you know about it. I'm not planning on bringing him back at any time after this, so I think that's okay. But and it does kind of make sense because yeah, I didn't. So a few things. The first thing I'm worried about is obviously they've been very capable up to this point. The characters have to encounter one and not die, and it has to seem like they didn't just decide not to kill them. So I don't know. I'm hoping like that came across. I'm also trying to portray Ed as like I'm trying to hint at him possibly not just being delusion without saying it. Um, so I hope that comes across. And that's kind of how she survives because Ed guided her through it. I don't know. Like no one else got an attack off on them, but they were all running away or already wounded. And then there's the big weakness, which I could just say. I mean, it's not one. No one watches these, and B, one and B, um, like these are for me to. I mean, this isn't an actual story. This is the creative process of a story. Um, like the fire destroys them. They're horrified of fire. They're also very flammable. All of the um constructs of the monster god are extremely flammable. And I figured Zach's the kinda I don't know. I figured it wouldn't be out of place for Zach to like along the way running up there. There's one thing that this was a thing that Zach is he's a smoker and he's trying to quit. So he's gonna have a lighter on him. And I kind of imagined him as he were running over to help. Like he picks up a can of deodorant that like had been knocked out of someone's bag. And he's like, "Yeah, I can make a flamethrower," because he's that sort of guy. He's just wacky enough to do it. So yeah, that were gonna be roughly how they defeat the Azelot. Um, and then after that, it should be wrapping up the whole section. I don't know what I'm gonna do immediately afterwards. Like, more character stuff, I guess, because there's gonna be a little bit of downtime. The next thing they're going to be doing is trying to work out exactly who they're up against using the information that they've gathered from the excursion to the Cooper Booth Tower. Cooper Booth, by the way, two teachers I had at high school who I think were both ex-cops. Mr. Booth was my favorite teacher ever of all time. I don't know why. When I was trying to think of a name, I'm really bad at names of places and people normally, but I'm kind of happy with this year's Nano characters. Yeah, that's all for today, I think. Just trying to think if there's anything else that I want to try and work out in my mind here. Work out in my mind. I'm doing all of them today. This is how my writing's been the whole time. You know, actually, one that I've been doing like his voice said every two or three, but yeah, I don't think I'm doing that bad. I quite like writing action scenes. We really don't want to make the action scene outstay its welcome, though, which is part of why we have the silver bullet move for the Azelot. But yeah, that's all. I think if I think of something else, I'll have to go in the start of the next one. So yeah, that's us. This was the most words I've written in one day. I can't remember exactly how many. I think it was somewhere between 18 and 1900, which is solidly more than you need. We're like 200 above what we need, so like high 1800s, I think. And we're keeping impressive resolve going halfway through Nano. This is normally like after. So the first week is really great. Then the second week up to today is like a slog, and you hate every minute of it. And then after that, it gets slowly better as you realize that you're on the other side of the big hump. You've got less Nano in front of you than you have got behind you. But feeling pretty good this year. I'll see you, Fox. Thanks for being here.